no, 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 no! Come in, sweetheart.
Blue, White, and Perfect from 1942 was the fourth of 7 Michael Shayne Private Detective films starring Lloyd Nolan as the intrepid investigator. In this film, he is in pursuit of some industrial diamonds that have been stolen by a Nazi smuggling ring. As usual, Lloyd Nolan is great here as the wisecracking gumshoe, and I can't wait to dig into this film. I'll offer an overview and then some closing thoughts. Well, the film opens up and we have the character Michael Shayne, played by Lloyd Nolan, and he shows up at a beauty salon where his girlfriend works. He briefly catches up with the character Ethel, who's played here by actress Marie Blake, who, by the way, I had to make a note of this, she also played, get this, Grandmama Addams from the old Addams Family TV show. Crazy, huh? Well, he's looking for his sweetheart Merle, but Ethel tells him that she's off to get married to some guy she met recently. Apparently, Shayne had been dragging his feet or something, and of course he's not very happy about this news. So we cut over to the character of Merle, played by the lovely actress Mary Beth Hughes. And I love how this is like the third Michael Shayne film she's been in, and each time she's a different character. And she's riding in a car with the character of Alexis Phoney, pronounced phony, I love it, played by actor Ivan Lebedev, and they're driving together to get married. However, right as they arrive at the court, he's promptly arrested for peddling illegal drugs, bigamy, and blackmail. So Merle figures out, of course, that this is Shayne's doing, shows up at his place, and is, of course, a little bit angry at him. But it turns out that the Phoney guy was actually guilty of those crimes, and the commissioner gives a call to Shayne to thank him for sending in the report. And of course, Shayne and Merle make up, and she'll agree to marry him if he agrees to get out of the detective racket and get a different job, to which he agrees. And sure enough, the next day he gives her a call, letting her know that he has a job. Now, it's actually a job investigating sabotage at the Thomas Aircraft Factory, but he tells her that it's a job as a riveter. Uh-oh. And wouldn't you know it, almost right away, they find the body of a man laying on the ground. It's a character, Vanderhoffen. It's played by actor Stephen Garay. And apparently he was knocked out, and $100,000 worth of industrial-grade diamonds have been stolen. And these are used as grinding tools there. So Michael Shayne examines his eyes, and he thinks something is fishy, and he decides to follow this Vanderhoffen character, because he's the factory's diamond cutter. A little suspicious, I guess. He tracks him back to his apartment, where he finds out that apparently he is cleared out of town. So from there, he hitches a ride with some movers who are transporting Vanderhoffen's case, brings them downtown and to the Daisy Bell Dress Company, and it's here that he sees Vanderhoffen arrive. So Michael Shayne has a plan. He goes out, he gets a fancy suit, he gets a fake business card made, and then he goes in to meet with the company manager, this character, Rudolf Hagerman. It's played by actor Henry Victor. Now, we find out that this Hagerman is actually a German spy, and they're smuggling the diamonds to Honolulu. Why Hawaii? I don't know exactly, but well, whatever. So Shayne goes in with his disguise as Colonel Henry Breckinridge Lee. Well, Hagerman is interrupted, though. He gets a note that Vanderhoffen has arrived. Now, Vanderhoffen, from behind the closed door, spots Shayne, and yeah, his secret is blown. Tells him, yeah, he's actually working at the Thomas Aircraft Factory, even though Shayne is unaware that his cover is blown. So he leaves and goes to make a call to check in on his girl.
Hello, Merle Garland Beauty Shop.
Hello, darling.
Hello, Mike. Oh, my goodness, what's all the noise?
Oh, I'm calling from the plant.
Oh, that's swell. How's it going?
Yeah. Now, what did you say, dear?
I said, how is it going?
Oh, swell. I'm taking to it like a duck to water.
So the original scheme of the Germans here was to hide the diamonds within buttons on outfits, but realizing they won't be able to get past customs anymore, they decide on another plan. Hagerman leaves, and Shayne tries to sneak back into the building later. And he gets in through a skylight, drops down, and snoops around. But some of the thugs have remained behind, and they catch him at gunpoint. Now Shayne manages to escape, though, and he climbs out a window, and he falls through a fabric canopy. I think I saw Jackie Chan do this trick once. So Shayne figures out that the next shipment will go out on the ocean liner Princess Nola. So he calls up his girlfriend Merle and talks her into writing a check for their dream house. But instead he's going to use this money to head to Hawaii. That's a little bit sneaky there, but he's in hot pursuit of these diamond smugglers, so he'll do what he has to do.
Well, what do you think, Mike?
Well, honey, I think we ought to buy it. I got a job now. Of course, I've only had it one day, but I know that's it. I'm going to stick to it.
All right. What do we have to do?
Well, Shayne is able to get on board and able to pass that check under a fake name, and he gets a room. Now, it's around here that he runs into Helen Shaw, who's played by Helene Reynolds. Now, they apparently go way back. She figures that he's probably working on something undercover, but agrees to keep it a secret. And a little later, they head to her cabin for drinks. Now, it's around here they meet the character Juan Arturo O'Hara, who's played by none other than George Reeves, Superman himself. And his character seems like a friendly fellow, maybe a little too friendly, and he joins them for some drinks as well. The drinks are served by a character named Nappy, who's played by actor Kurt Boyce, who I remember from Casablanca. Remember, he was the pickpocket guy. Be on guard, this place is full of vultures, vultures. Well, Helen gets a phone call, so she leaves to go and answer it, and wouldn't you know it, it's that Hagerman character calling her. So at this point, we're not really sure where her loyalty is. Now, back at her room later, she calls Shayne and asks to meet with him up on the deck right away. As the two of them leave, Nappy secretly watches them and goes to inform O'Hara. He loads his gun and heads for the deck. Now, on the deck, Shayne and Helen question each other as to why they are there, and both are really vague and evasive when suddenly someone fires at them. What's going on? Now, with only about 15 minutes left in the film, I don't want to give much more away, because I thought there were some really fun twists and turns ahead that really leave you questioning what's going on. Like, who is Helen, and what is her connection to the diamond smugglers? Who is this O'Hara character? What's his interest? And will Shayne figure out this mess, stop the diamond smugglers, and get back to his lovely girlfriend? Well, you need to see how things wrap up for yourself. And since I think it's in the public domain, there's a whole bunch of copies out there on YouTube, so you should go and check out this film and see the ending for yourself. So some closing thoughts here. Blue, White, and Perfect was a 1942 detective crime film directed by Herbert I. Leeds. He would go on to direct the next 3 films in this series, which I'm going to eventually review, as I love the movies in this series. The film was part of 20th Century Fox's Michael Shayne film series of 7 films, and it's 20th Century Fox that will likely be serving me my copyright claim this week when I try to upload the review to YouTube. The plot for this movie comes from the serial story Blue, White, and Perfect by Borden Chase. And it is my goal to eventually review all of these movies in this series. And in fact, I'm hoping to watch and review some of the Hugh Beaumont films when he plays Michael Shayne for PRC Films. Not just because I'm a big fan of Leave It to Beaver, but because PRC films are very likely in the public domain. This one was really a lot of fun, and it had the elements and thrills I really enjoy from a good detective story. The hero in pursuit of the undercover operation that's stealing diamonds. You've got some sketchy supporting characters that may or may not be who they seem to be, and of course a lovely femme fatale from the hero's past. It was great, and there are plenty of excellent twists and turns near the end of the film, and I just love how everything resolves. My 3 fans know by now that I am a big fan of Lloyd Nolan, and like usual, he's great here as the detective, using disguises and silly voices and costumes to track down the diamond thieves. I realize that there have been plenty of films with more edgy, hard-boiled detectives, but maybe it's just me. I like the detective who's maybe got more of a silly side. I love how in this movie, even though his character's given the opportunity where he could drop into a safer job and settle down with his lovely sweetheart, I guess he just can't resist the appeal of being the investigator, and honestly, I don't think we the viewers would want it any other way. Still, if it was me in that same situation, and I was in that same role, and there was Mary Beth Hughes, I mean, come on, man.
Oh, Mike, that's swell. As soon as you get a job, we'll get married and buy that ranch in the valley and raise rabbits and...
Raise rabbits?
Among other things.
Yowzers. Well, anyhow, I like how the film felt to be basically in two acts. You have the investigation taking place in the city, with Shayne doing his undercover work and investigating, and then we're on an ocean liner and everything is different. New characters are introduced, and honestly, there's a little bit more suspense involved when you're trapped on a boat with the uncertainty of who can be trusted, especially when someone is shooting at him out of the shadows. Of course, we know he'll be okay because you know the saved by cannon trope, since I know there's at least 3 more films in the series with Lloyd Nolan as Michael Shayne, so we know he's not going to die heroically or anything in the film. But I still like it anyway. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, as these are just so good. And I have to make a note about Mary Beth Hughes as the long-suffering sweetheart to Michael Shayne. She is a lovely actress, but boy can her character get fiery here, throwing lamps and things at Shayne. I love their interaction. I love the chemistry and how it's so up and down. And as mentioned before, this is her 3rd role in the series. Each time is a different character. It's so crazy. You'd think if there was any sense of continuity, at some point, Shayne would be like, hey, wait a minute. You look very familiar, kind of like that other girl. And I have to make a note of this. What's funny is that from time to time, I will binge old episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's a series I just love, namely the ones from the early 1990s. It's probably my favorite television series ever. I watch them all the time, and I recently happened across their riff of the film, I Accuse My Parents. This really goofy movie, and unexpectedly, there was Mary Beth Hughes as the young romantic interest in the film to the troubled teen of the movie. A teen who looked like he was in his early 30s. And, I guess you never know who you might see when watching an old film, even if it's one being spoofed by Mystery Science Theater. Now, Helene Reynolds was also excellent in the film as this sultry and mysterious woman from Shayne's past. Although not in the film for very long, I did want to make mention of her because I thought she was really great as this mysterious character. I looked at her list of films, and there aren't very many, as apparently she left movies for the stage in 1945. And I thought Henry Victor did a fine job as the evil diamond smuggler character, Hagerman. Curiously enough, one of his earlier roles I remember him from was that of the strongman from that controversial film Freaks in 1932. Whew, now there's an interesting pre-code film. I'm not sure if I will ever review that one on this channel because of the content, and dang, that ending. Whew, they did some pretty wild stuff pre-code. Squawk! 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 Anyhow, I'm going to ramble a little bit here because it's fascinating to me when I watch these old films from the early 1940s that often the world is so different back then that you overlook sometimes how much the world has changed. For instance, the film features an ocean liner traveling to Hawaii. And even though obviously it was a pretend Hollywood one in the movie, I still loved seeing that era of the past of travelers with those big travel cases with all the stickers. And we even see this scene where Shayne is creeping around in the noisy cargo compartment area. We're so used to commercial airlines to get to someplace like Hawaii. But this film being situated in the early 1940s, it really wouldn't have been until after World War II when traveling by commercial airline would become much more common. I did a little research here, and during World War II, casual air travel pretty much stopped, with flying limited mostly to those serving the war effort. And of course, after the war, the aviation industry had a substantial growth, and travel by commercial plane would become much more common. All that to say is, back in the early 40s, if you needed to get to Hawaii, it might take a few days and you'd likely travel via ocean liner. And yeah, I just find that fascinating. And I know that's a bunch of unnecessary background, but I'll say this. If I ever get to the point where I'm not broke all the time and I want to take a trip to Hawaii to, see where they filmed Magnum P.I. back in the 80s, since I'm 6'4" and I hate air travel, maybe, like the people in this film, someday I could take a cruise instead. Well, I'll keep dreaming. But anyhow, let me close. That was my review of Blue, White, and Perfect. It was an excellent detective film from 1942, starring Lloyd Nolan as that driven, frequently very funny investigator out to solve the crime. And Mary Beth Hughes, Helene Reynolds, and George Reeves were all great in the cast as well. It was a great film. It's an entertaining mystery, plenty of twists and turns, and it's definitely one worth checking out.